Hey everybody, I'm out here today in the market garden, setting more things up, getting more and more closer to getting this whole thing completed. And today I'm going to be planting 5 varieties of grapes and 5 berry plants. I'm going to be planting some boysenberries, blackberries, small concord grapes, some flame red grapes, and some green Thompsons. We're going to be planting them along this fence line here. Also today I'll be installing the irrigation, so I'm setting that up as well. Last night I planted a bunch of comfrey and some yarrow in here. I've got some dill, some yacon, a couple sweet potatoes growing out here, and also 5 Jubilee watermelons. And in the rest of the areas that I haven't planted yet, I'm just going to plant some stringless bush beans, so that'll help kind of build the soil. So over here I'm working on my irrigation. Basically I'm just running a hose all the way from my main connection at my main station. This is going to always be under pressure. Just imagine it's PVC instead. I did this just because it's cheaper. I don't want to really do a permanent setup because, I'm only going to live here for, a couple years probably. So this allows me to turn it on and off just as an emergency valve. Then this is the Orbit 2 valve timer. It also has a manual selection as well. So whenever I want to use my hose, I can just pull this down and use it instantly. I've got my filter hooked up to here because I'm going to be using that to wet down compost, the soldier fly, and also eventually I'm going to be putting in some a bunch of worm bins right here. So I want to have chlorine-free water for that. The other lines I'm not going to be running a filter on. It'll just be straight city water. But the rest of my beds out here are all going to be fully irrigated with filtered water. Oh, and I guess the reason I'm not going to do it filtered is it'd just be too expensive to have a couple more filters here, and just for 2 more 40-foot by 30-inch beds, it's just not worth it to set that up. So it's totally fine. Most people don't use filters anyway. So here I've got backflow preventers. And backflow preventers are important so that the water is not like getting back into your irrigation system and then polluting your actual drinkable water to your home system. So you want to have backflow preventers, and it's actually required by law, I think, in most places. But we want to be a good neighbor. We don't want to pollute our water system. So next is just a 155 mesh particle filter. And this is running into a 25 psi pressure regulator, so it's going to drop at the 25. This is going to run my berries, berry lines, and a little flower bed. And then I have one more of these, and that's also running the particle filter. And then it runs a 15 psi pressure regulator for my drip tape. And then this is an adapter to the 1/2-inch poly line. So I'm running my 1/2 inch from this timer station out and then down those beds and along the entire fence line. And my tomatoes are doing pretty good over here. Just my couple of random ones I threw over here. See if they produce some fruit for me. And the passion fruit are looking good. Propagated these from my mom's passion fruit, and they all look like they're gonna make it. Pretty stoked on that. All right, hope you enjoy the process here. I'm really stoked to get all these berries in the ground. I'm going to attach. Okay, good. So I've ran the first section of my pipe, and I'm going to attach an L adapter there so I can run it down. I'm going to dig a little trench right here and just bury the 1/2-inch line, just 1 inch or 2 inches deep, and then put some really light bricks on top of them so that the chickens can't scratch it up. So I need to run my other line that's going to go all the way down, all the way to the end of the fence there. So I can bury them both together. So the next thing I'm gonna do is lay out this long, almost 100-foot section of 1/2 inch. Okay, so the last step is to just stretch this all the way out, get the kinks out of it. The 1/2 inch line really likes to get twisted up, so really make sure that you untwist it before you fully install it. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is make sure that the half-inch line is all snugged up against the fence. So yeah, just make sure it's stretched out super straight and then attach it kind of to the fence back there. My hole's dug for my lines. You can tell it's not very deep, and I've got some dirt here, just some fill dirt, and these really light bricks. So I'm just gonna cover it up, hack it down with my feet, and then put the light bricks on top. It won't pinch the lines at all. Okay, so now I've got my nice protected line here. Chickens can't get to it. The line has been laid all the way down for the grapes and the berries and the flowers. Now I just need to set up the rest of this line, and I'm gonna be doing a flow-through irrigation system. So the whole thing is gonna be connected. So that water can flow from backside all the way to the front side. What this does is just prevents clogs and gives you a better, more even coverage. So I'm gonna attach a little L adapter here to my drip line, and then run it down the bed across to the other side, and then cap it. Here's my timer, and it has the 2 backflow preventers on there. And then I've got an on-off valve right here. It makes it easy in case I ever need to dismantle this. I don't have to go over to the main valve to turn everything off. It's just right here. I'm getting that finger tight, almost as tight as I can go with my fingers. I don't want to get too crazy and overdo it. Whenever you're using a rubber washer, over-tightening does not really make that much of a difference. So you over-tighten, you could actually cause a leak. I'm going to put a support here so that the weight is not pulling down on the hose and this connection. I'm just going to push up against this so that when I release, the weight is on this. The weight is on the bracket and not the connections. And the reason I'm doing this is so that if I ever yank the hose, it doesn't yank this whole thing. And now I'm going to put one more little bracket down here on the hose and just attach it to the fence, so it'll be one more layer of protection. So now I just need to attach my filters here. Yeah, let's do this. This is my grape and berry line. This is going to need the 25 PSI regulator. So I'm going to have to cut a little more off. To figure out the distance I'll need to cut, I'm just going to attach it and mock up my angle that I want. So something like that. Does not have any kinks. And then I'm going to just measure up where it would plug all the way in. So somewhere about right there is where I should cut. And I can go a little long just to make sure that I did do this correctly. So I'll mock it up one more time. Once that's plugged in, I'll have no kinks. The reason I need to measure it like that is so that when I plug this in, this is not coming back out. I can fix it if I have to. I could pull it apart, and so I've got it pre-measured, so I know I can just slide this on here and plug it in and I won't have a problem. It's so much better to measure it a couple times than to not measure, make a mistake, and have to redo it. It takes so much longer. And I can say that from a lot of experience. I've made a lot of mistakes, let's just say. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing of mocking it up. Looks good. But I won't know the total extent until I close off the entire system and pressurize it. Then I'll be able to look for all my leaks. Until that time, I'm not gonna bury anything. I need to put all my connections together now. So now it's time for drip tape and emitter line for the berries and grapes. Okay, so the next thing I need to do before I put my drip tape connectors and my drip tape on is to blow out all the open ends on this drip system. Instead of buying those little connectors that they try to sell you for 50 cents or whatever, they look like little figure eights and they bend it off. Just use some electrical tape and it works just as well. It's easy to take it off if you need to and then reapply it. So today I'm out here setting up my irrigation for the berries, the grapes, and the fruit trees we just planted. And I wanted to show how I'm setting up my irrigation. So what I did is I ran some 1/2-inch poly line from my timers that I have back there. And then I'm going to tap into them with an on-off. So I like to use my on-offs as the transfer bar basically. So you can just plug it directly in to the 1/2 inch line. You can control it, so it's nice. Sometimes you don't want to water certain plants for certain reasons. I have 3 of my plants are going to get more shade in the morning, so for that reason maybe I won't want to water those as much, so I can even limit how much water is going in there. So if I put it at a 45-degree angle, it'll slow down the rate that the water is coming out. I pre-built all these at another location, so I didn't have to like bend down constantly while I'm creating it. I figured out the size that I wanted, which was 10 emitters. That should be a lot of water. It should be up to like 3/4 of a gallon to like 1 gallon per minute, something like that. This is a 25 psi line. So once I plug them in, I'll be using these plugs here. You can use these to cap off a 1/4 inch line. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop all these in, and I really like this tool. They also have the other kind. I have one. It's just like a handle, and at the end is a little spear that you pierce the 1/2 inch with. That's a lot more work. This hand grip pierces it perfectly like every time. Sometimes with the hand one, it doesn't like puncture perfectly, or there's other things that go wrong. So I highly recommend one of these. It was $10 at Home Depot, but if you're doing a lot of 1/2 inch work, this will save your hands a lot of pain and suffering, because doing drip work is kind of really hard on your fingers. And where I punctured it, I wanted to make sure that the hole is going to face out at a good angle. If I would have put the hole at the top, the line would have been facing up, and the 1/4 inch line isn't very flexible, so then you're going to have a line that's all high up in the air, and you're going to have to stake it down, put it at a nice angle, and it'll stay flat on the ground for you. Because I use this tool, it popped in really easily. Now I've got a completely controllable line right here. Once I install these lines, I'm going to run the water so that the water flushes out the line. I'll turn it off and then cap them, because I don't want any dirt to be trapped in these lines. Yeah, I'm just going to install the rest of these lines, and then I'm going to set up another little irrigation setup for our little flower bed over there. Okay, so the last thing I just need to do is flush the lines, and then I'll put in my plugs. So I want to show you this amazing technique that I learned from a farmer mentor of mine named Mark, and he's helped me out countless times with a lot of different questions I've had about farming, and yeah, I can't thank people like that in my life enough. So you can do this with literally just drip tape and a 1/4 inch straight line. There's no emitters in this, and this is every 6 inch drip tape. So you can combine these without a transfer barb. Using a transfer barb is easier, and I do recommend doing that. And I'm going to be doing something a little different here, which is to use an on-off valve as a transfer barb so that I can control on and off. Because what I want to irrigate is just this line along the fence line here. It's going to be running across where the grapes and berries are. So I just want to be able to control on and off if I don't want to give that water sometimes. I can't control on and off with these. Let's just run straight water. I'm going to use this technique so that I can have that control over the lines. I'm going to outline this technique in detail in another video. I'm just displaying what I'm doing today and showing how I'm hooking up my irrigation. Use my handy dandy puncher tool here. I'm going to attach it. So now I'm just going to think about how it's going to attach. Just slightly lock it up. I'm going to cut off where the emitter is first. I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to cut off a piece about this long. This is going to be like my cover piece. It's going to help hold the line in place. So I'm going to put this covering shield over the 1/4 inch. So next what I'm going to do is just make a small cut, clean my blade off. And I'm going to make a small cut right here, not too big. Okay, that should be good enough. And I'm just making it in the middle, in between where my cut was and the emitter is. And I want to cut this at a 45-degree angle. and that'll help it to pierce the little incision I made in the drip tape, and help it to, because I don't want to expand this hole too far. I want to expand it just enough so that it gets a really tight seal. Helps to puff it up a little bit. There it goes. Okay, so I made it in. I want it to be really tight like that. Okay, so I'm gonna shove it in pretty far. Okay, about there. So then to finish it off, you just fold this up a couple times. Bring the drip tape over. This is 15 mil. It's a lot harder to bend it, but it's gonna last a long time. Okay, there you go. So now this is a fitting. We just created a fitting basically, and this is gonna fit inside. It will not leak. And here we have an on-off valve. So what I've created is just a really, really cheap drip tape setup. And so you can do this for your beds. The farm that I worked at before ran the whole irrigation system just using that technique. They used a transfer barb to 1/4 inch to drip tape for the whole farm. So it's completely doable on a professional level. And then it's just a great technique. You could even run your small garden beds like that. I would recommend it because it's extremely cheap. It'll last you a long time. It's efficient watering, plus you get the control of the on and off valve. All for it's the cheapest price you could possibly build a setup, a controllable setup. So I'm gonna experiment with this, and I want to make this setup flow through as well. So I'm gonna do the same thing down here, all the way down at the other end of my 1/2 inch, so that it's flow through. Because I want to see if I can do this same technique with flow through. I chose to do these beds like this, where you have the control here, just because I plan on growing crops and pulling them out around the same time. So there's really no reason to have on and off. Here there's more of a situation where I need on off because I've got permanent long-term growing plants like berries and grapes. I'll also plant some annuals and flowers in between them. So having this control is really important. Alright, so I just finished everything, and here's the final setup and what it looks like. I just got it running right now. Got another little line running out to this jasmine here. So let's check out this fitting here. Now I just need to turn down the pressure a little bit because this is a 25 psi line and it's only supposed to be running 15. So I'm going to control the pressure with this knob here. I'm going to do it to the other line too. That'll help a little bit. If I can limit the amount of flow to very, very minimal, then I'll have to dial this in a little bit. But yeah, it's dripping. Looks good. So now I'll be able to plant this whole line here. I'm going to plant some tomatoes in between everything, because I've got a lot of extra tomato sprouts right now. My black-eyed peas are coming up. Watermelon is looking good. Got some yarrow here, some comfrey, more beans, some sweet potato and peas, more comfrey. Can't wait to see what this looks like in about a month or two.